Hi everyone, I'm Isha, co-founder of Thrive HQ and Diyaa, which is an initiative under Thrive HQ's ecosystem focused on inclusive parenting and supporting families raising children of determination. And welcome to this conversation. Over the past few weeks, many families have been navigating uncertainty, changes in routine, limited access to support systems, and a general sense of unpredictability. And for parents of neurodivergent children and children in general, this can feel even more overwhelming because routine, structure, and consistency play such a big role in helping children feel safe and regulated. So, the entire intention behind this conversation today is simple. We want to create something that is not just informative, but also supportive. To bring in expert guidance that helps parents understand what their children might be going through, and more importantly, what they can do in these uncertain moments to support them better. I'm really glad to be joined by someone who brings both deep expertise and real empathy in this space. Please welcome Louise Hurley. Louise Hurley is a trauma informed conscious parenting coach and founder of Parent Prosper Coaching. With over 20 years of experience and a master's in education, she specializes in child development and nervous system co regulation, helping families navigate emotional and behavioral challenges with connection and not conflict. Based in Dubai, Louise works with diverse families and believes in parenting each child for who they are, not who we expect them to be. Louise, welcome and thank you so much for being here with us today. As we were discussing before the start of the podcast, how the uncertain times have thrown everyone into a different and uncharted regulations. We have got ecosystems where we don't know how to approach uncertain times, so much so that we are not even sure how to even talk to our children. Whether we are preschoolers, we have got school going kids, or we have got teen. The entire system right now feels so uncertain and unpredictable that it is becoming difficult for parents to navigate these challenging times. I would like to ask you a question which we have been getting a lot from our families around here. Why do sudden disruption affect our children, whether neurodivergent or children in general, more strongly than it affects adults? And what we can actually do to, to address it and bring some sense of regulation within our ecosystem?
Right. Well, I think it's probably helpful to start by saying that all children are affected by uncertainty. And uncertainty essentially means a loss of safety in the nervous system. So any child, whether they're neurodivergent or otherwise, any child who, they can become more sensitive, they can become more reactive or more unsettled when routines change and the environment becomes unstable. So I feel that's inevitable in what we're going through at the moment. We're going to see that across the board. Where it can be different, I suppose, with neurodivergent children or children with anxiety is in the intensity of what they're experiencing and in the recovery as well. So many neurodivergent children rely much more heavily on predictability and structure and sensory stability to feel safe in their bodies. So it stands to reason then when that predictability is disruptive, as and we're seeing that on so many levels now. We're seeing that with the political, situation, the loud noises, being at home all the time, which we have been more recently. Maybe people who aren't normally home are home now, and it's changing the dynamic. So maybe dad's normally at work, but now he's working from home, and just everything like that will have this knock-on effect. So when that predictability is disrupted, and there's changes to the routine, the nervous system registers it. So that's why we're going to see, and we're probably already seeing some one or two things that are happening at home because the nervous system senses it as a threat. So we will see things like increased rigidity. We often see it in very young children as well. If you think about how toddlers can become very rigid at times, I feel like they're a great example of what can happen when a nervous system is really up and down. So we'll see rigidity and overwhelm and sensory sensitivity and reduced ability to cope with transitions. And I feel like that's the key for us to understand as we're going into this hopefully short era of our learning, is that we're going to see reduced ability to cope, and we have a choice in how we respond to that. and our response is going to make all the difference.
Absolutely, that's very, very true, Louise. Also, we see that children are able to send out signals when they feel dysregulated, and with the amount of uncertainty we have, whether children who are neurodivergent or children in general, they do that. But more importantly, we also see that parents, because they're having such a heavy burden on themselves, taking care of the children, their own work, their own life, family, everything. So, what are these little signals that we can possibly look and watch out for the child before it becomes dysregulated, as a part of the nervous system? Not only for the children, what is it that we can possibly also see within ourselves as parents that you can say as signals that can help us become, before it becomes a big episode of a meltdown or a dysregulation? What are those tiny signals which parents can see within themselves but also in the children, so that they can help them with the practical tips to get over that phase?
I think that it's a really important question, actually, because most of us wait until there's been a meltdown, or they've snapped, or they've started shouting at their children, which, we all do at times, to realize, oh my gosh, I'm dysregulated here. But it didn't happen in that moment. It happened hours beforehand or days beforehand, because dysregulation builds early. So it builds gradually. We want to catch it early. The early signs are often misunderstood as, from children, bad behavior,
Yeah.
naughtiness. Oh, he's really being defiant this morning. Oh, gosh, she's being so difficult. And then for us, it's just the irritation, the low level, you're catching yourself sighing more, and things are generally okay, but it's that little build up, and it has this snowball effect. We all have a window of tolerance, and you know, when we're, say, imagine this little window is the window of tolerance. When we tip out of that, we either go into hyper arousal, and that's a fight or a flight response, or we go into a hypo arousal, which is more of a shutdown. So depending on what somebody's window of tolerance is like, and this goes for children as well, you might see tipping out of that window of tolerance quite early. And it's going to be getting frustrated, being sensitive, maybe controlling behavior. We see this with parents as well. A child kicking a ball around a sitting room might not be too much of an issue on an ordinary day, but you couple that with the fact that you've had no sleep. Now the children aren't going to school. You've had to meal plan for the weekend. Nobody has liked any of the dinners. All these little things, and suddenly that ball becomes the absolute disaster zone for you, that ball being kicked around. So I think what's really important in terms of figuring out what are those early dysregulation signs is checking in with yourself. And you have to be so intentional about this, because we are such busy people, because we have so many distractions. This is where mindfulness, and I know people don't want to hear it, but this is where mindfulness goes hand in hand with parenting and being conscious about how we approach life. If you are autopiloting your way through your day, you will not notice those signs. So can you pause for a second? Can you put your hand on your chest and check in and say, right, how am I feeling right now? When I onboard new parents that I work with, new clients, the very first thing I give them is a sheet at the beginning of the week and say, I want you to just note down, even on your notes app, when you woke up this morning, how were you feeling in your body? Where was the tension? Um, what is your breathing like? On a scale of 1 to 10, how tired are you? Even so you can have that awareness, because then we can be proactive and we can start to say to ourselves, okay, listen, I know I'm already teetering and it's only 9 o'clock in the morning, and we can start to put some things into effect. Case in point, me and my epically long nap that I had yesterday. That was an absolute response to, oh no, I can feel myself. And if I don't get a grip on this now, then later on, somebody is going to need me for something, or I'm going to need to co-regulate with one of my children, and it won't be within my capacity, because I will already have tipped out of my my window of tolerance.
Yeah, yeah, very true, very true. I also believe that all of us as parents, whether we are having a single child or multiple kids in the family, we have a critical threshold, and with the current state of the world we are living in, it has been stretched too thin for all of us. And you also have these families where the house helps and the extended family are living together, and where the parents have not only the extended burden of taking care of their own children, but also the house help and themselves. So and with the routine getting broken down every now and often, spring breaks are currently going on, children are at the home, and with the current state we also have children who would be continuing distance learning. What are these small things as families which we can continue to do, like a routine check, like when children are going to school and parents are going to office, the routine is completely set, but with everyone together under one roof, are there any exercises or any kinds of small tips or routine checks that we can possibly do together as a family so that all of us stay regulated, and at least one of them within the family can take charge and say that, okay, this person is getting dysregulated, maybe set up aside and do some breathing exercise, as you said, mindfulness. Not many people want to hear this at the moment, but this is the truth, that mindfulness helps. How, what are the basic routines that we can set up as a family that can help us uh, remain under that critical threshold and stop ourselves from getting dysregulated at the moment?
Yes, I think first and foremost, it's it's important to, I suppose, decide at the outset what standards are we going to uphold here in terms of online learning, in terms of how our daily life looks. What are the non-negotiables? Maybe you're a high functioning family and everyone has their role and everyone gets in and out in a very busy household. And the the thresholds or the boundaries have shifted now. It's not the same. We've got so many different things going on. Something is going to have to shift. In terms of routines, I would say eat your meals together if you can. Have that same thing where we get up in the morning, where we get dressed. I certainly remember as a teacher during online learning in COVID, I remember our school saying, have a shower every day. And I remember thinking, why would we not? But sometimes it's those things that fall by the wayside. Oh, it's fine. We're in our pajamas anyway. Let's just leave it. So I do feel like it's important to get dressed, and have that routine. Try to keep the same kind of process going, especially in the mornings, especially in times of transition. And the other thing is to drop your standards entirely in terms of what are the expectations for work with your children. What do you want them to get done? If there is a meltdown going on and there's a Zoom call that's going to start, don't go to the Zoom call. I really feel like people need permission to say no to certain things. This is an extraordinary situation. We are asking so much of ourselves, so much of our children, and then the teacher comes on the Zoom screen and says, right, turn to page 5 or whatever it is. It's just not appropriate at times. So you have to make that judgment call, and I think you have to be okay with it. And as I said, the other thing is dropping the screens for a little while and coming together and touching base, having the meals together, talking about things. If you can get outside for a quick walk, that's always a regulating thing. If you are breathing and if you're doing the mindfulness side of things, I suppose what I would say is don't thrust that on your child when they're in the middle of a meltdown. That's probably not going to be met, with open arms, but it is something that you can do throughout the day. Even a box breath, even something like that can give a quick reset. Also movement. We are indoors, we're finding it hard. How can we move? Even if we shake our bodies, even if you turn on a little bit of kid bops and get them to practice the dance moves, you're moving those emotions, those frustrations through your body. And you're also meeting the needs of several sensory systems as well. So
Yeah.
if you can do that, you're constantly resetting, I suppose, the nervous system, and you're preventing that floating up towards, uh-oh, we're out of capacity now, and now we're going into kaboom. So you're constantly rejigging and readjusting. It's going to look different for different age groups. If some children are older, I think I have an 11-year-old. Is he about to jump up and down and start doing kid bops? No, probably not. He's a bit too cool for that. But can I grab a basketball and start throwing it back and forth to him? Can we inject a little bit of joy into things? I know
Yeah.
it's the last thing we feel like, but bigger picture thinking, this is what's going to prevent the meltdowns and the just general upset. The younger ones, while they're more expressive and they're more prone to ups and downs, I feel like you can jolly them along a little bit easier. It's easier to be silly and funny. Well, it is personally for me.
Yeah.
Not everyone's the same, but you can easily get some games going with them. I think the thing is that it involves an exertion of energy, and parents are so depleted at the moment
Yeah.
that it might feel like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to entertain these children. But I heard somebody actually in OT recently talk about this as it's as a sourdough starter. Just get the just get the starter going, and the pace will pick up, and then they will get into it, and you can begin to step back. You don't have to be so massively hands-on with this, but they
Yeah.
do need help getting started.
Very true, very true. And something which we have also realized after being inside homes for quite some time now is the effect of children and their friendships. When they're in schools, they have their own groups, they have their own support system in terms of friendships which are there. And in this uncertain time, which is really sad, we have seen a lot of these families, taking a call and leaving, and the children not having their own friends. So how do you suggest that as parents we can fill that gap of missing friendships? Because anywhere between preschoolers and teenagers, friendship is something which is very, very important as a relationship building, as a support system. Sometimes the children, what they cannot speak to their parents, they share it with their friends. And with schools being shut and majority of the families being inside, uh, friendship has definitely taken a toll, whether it's for children, for us. But how do you think that parents can fill in that gap, or try to bring that friendship into picture so that the children do not feel disconnected all of a sudden from their own ecosystem?
That's such a great point. Yes, friendships are so important. And but so are their relationships with us, right? So
Yes.
we're really stepping in, not in the form of, well, I'll be your best friend now, 11-year-old. That maybe that's not appropriate, but you can definitely be there as the anchor and the harbor for your child. If they are getting frustrated and saying, I just feel so lonely and I haven't seen anyone in ages, and this person's gone and that person's gone, you validate. And I think something parents really need to practice is listening and appropriate listening skills. So that's active listening and reflective listening. As parents, we obviously love our children more than anything. And when we see them struggle, many of us want to jump in and fix it, fix it, fix it. So when you hear them going on a negative spiral, we don't even let them finish. And we start jumping in and saying, well, actually, that's not true because he will be back in 2 weeks and it's only this and it's only that. And it's very well meaning, but it's also incredibly invalidating. And I think we need to get very comfortable with allowing our children to vent and
Yeah.
practicing zipping our lips a little bit and just making all the right noises.
Yeah.
Really, all the
Yeah.
right noises. And that sounds really, really tough in whatever way you would do it. There are some very Americanized ways of doing it, and we hear examples and we think, I can't hear myself saying that, but you do it in your style. Um, so you validate the feelings like, gosh, that sounds so tough. What's your next move? What do you think? How can I help you? Is there anything you need? Another thing we do is imagine that you are a newspaper editor and you have a reporter who's just come back from some disaster scene and they have just vented it out all verbally. So your job is to take the headline from that big, long um, flow of consciousness and say, okay, so what I'm hearing you saying is X, Y, Z. Right. Validate. And then you can gently challenge if they are regulated enough. So these are for little slightly older children. You can gently challenge that. I wonder, are there any ways we could contact that person? Do you have his mom's number? Do I have the mom's number? Something we've done in our house, which was premature. We hadn't planned on it, but now my son has access to Messenger because I just thought if I can supervise this and if it's going to help with your mental health during this time where you're not seeing friends, then yes, I will do that. For the younger children, they're not going to pick up the phone and talk to their friends. So you, again, you validate, you reflect, you actively listen, you don't jump in and fix, but also you keep the idea and the memory of those friendships really alive. So I have noticed with my 3-year-old, there's 2 little friends who feature in bedtime stories every single night at the moment. And in the stories, they get on the unicorns, and then Alia wants to do this, and then but fine, if that's how you can get your needs for friendship and camaraderie met through fantasy right now and through those stories, and if that helps you to feel safe, we can do that as well. And you can make things for each other. I know some communities have play dates going on right now. I've run a few of them in my area just to get the children together, and also for the mums and dads, by the way, who also are just thinking we really need to see other people. Um, and with homeschooling, or not homeschooling, remote learning, what I'm seeing now happening is the idea of pods coming together. And I think more will unfold in the coming weeks, but I've seen several educational settings starting to offer the idea of pods in someone's house. I think that's really positive as well. It's a nice way for children to touch base with each other.
And that's very true. Also, a good point that which you mentioned is that parents also need to have friends available and talk to them, see other people. And what I usually do is I have a group of girlfriends and we kind of catch up with each other on a Zoom call. And there was one very important question which came during the Zoom call was, children are right now are exposed to a lot of information which is floating around this uncertain times. And however, not I would have wanted, they have been exposed to some really big terms like, war and nuclear and missiles and drones. And even for my 7-year-old, I still feel that he is very young to be exposed to certain terms because I got exposed to these terms when I was in my late 20s and I could understand why these things happen. But to explain geopolitics to these kids, what do you think, as parents, what should be our approach and what should be a language, certain safe words or what kind of body language or, just a verbal tone that we should be doing it with our children? And do we even want to explain this? Because this is a big bone of contention between me and my husband. He's like, no, we need to explain him and just make him understand why things are happening. He's here in this part of the world. He needs to understand. And I'm of the opinion that, however long we can try and keep his innocence intact, not expose him to these kinds of words, the better it is. But coming from you, I would definitely want to understand what should be a direct approach, because with distance learning starting, the kids are going to talk to each other. And some of them would be informed, some of them would be not informed. But we don't want our child to be feeling that, oh, I am not aware of what's happening. How am I supposed to regulate myself?
So relevant at the moment. I think you need only look at the WhatsApp groups. This is what I'm noticing with adults, and let's then apply it to children. When these interceptions are going off, I have a WhatsApp in particular that just goes crazy. And there's 2 distinct groups of people. There are the ones who, as soon as they hear a sound or an alert, will type, "Oh, did you hear that? Oh my goodness, I heard it here, I heard it there." And then you have other kinds of people who start posting all the information they can get their hands on. And the more people, the more that second group posts information, the more anxious the first group becomes. They don't want to think about it, they don't want to hear it, they just want it all to go away, they don't want the details. And that second group can't stand the silence. And they really want to grab as much information as possible so they can make sense of it. So it's really important that we acknowledge that everybody experiences stress differently, and some people will want to know more information. I have to say, I'm one of those where I don't just tell me everything is fine. I know I can hear things and I'd like to know more about that. Whereas there are other people who will say, see, they said everything is fine, so we are fine. And when it comes to children, it's kind of the same. I would say it goes back to your active listening. What are they asking, first of all? Are they genuinely asking you to break down what a Scud missile is? Are they really asking you to do that? Or are they saying, whoa, that was really a loud noise. I can't really make sense of that. What might that be? So the first thing you do is you establish what they know. And then you ask, have you any questions? You don't blurt out the geopolitical conversation. You don't give too much, because sometimes you can overshare, and for different children, that will really overwhelm them. So it is a case by case. I do feel the less they know in terms of complicated things, the better in some ways. But if they ask, we can't deny it. I'm not a fan of people saying it's fireworks. We don't want to create this lifelong fear of fireworks. I grew up in a generation where every time there was thunder and lightning, there was always an old lady who would tell you it was God moving the furniture. You know, that did not help. So we want to avoid those kind of things. So be honest. Don't overshare. Establish what they know and if they would like to know anything else. But above all, the message is you are safe. You are safe. You are safe right now in this moment. You are safe. If they start asking things like, but what's going to happen? You say, right now we are very safe. I am very confident and we've got plans. If anything changes, we're going to be able to shift and move with that. My main job is to keep you safe. The people in this country are working around the clock to keep us safe.
Yeah.
I would much rather be here than in another location, because I really feel like they're doing such a great job. So that's all you have to worry about. But if you are worried, you can talk to me about it and we can have a chat. So it's about drip feeding in that information. But the approach of it's only fireworks, it's nothing, because interestingly, they do they do feed off our energy. So we can't be standing in the kitchen fretting and then coming in and faking it in front of them. They will have noticed the tone, they will have noticed the body language. So again, it's regulating yourself first. Are you taking the deep breaths? Are you really taking a moment to ground yourself? And then the conversations that they overhear, because we all have family members on WhatsApp, on voice notes, going, oh my gosh, did you hear this? And, you know,
Yeah.
I heard that XYZ, and those little ears are definitely flapping. And for example, my 3-year-old, I didn't know that she knew the word missile, because we were just calling them bangs.
Yeah.
And I was really doubling down on the message. When you hear a bang, it's really loud, but are you safe? And she used to go, yes, I'm safe. And she was quite happy, to the point where she had high-heeled shoes on and was like clopping around the house going bang, bang, bang. I thought, okay, I think she's all right with this. But then one day she turned around and said, I think I hear a whistle. And I thought, oh,
Wow.
oh, you knew that. Okay. So they're taking it in. So we have to be mindful about it, because there's so many screens going on in the house. So I think it's for us to control the narrative
Yeah.
in an appropriate way. If they get onto a screen with other children on an online group situation, the teacher should be cutting down those kinds of things. It's already happened with teaching colleagues and children saying, I heard this and I heard that. And my teacher colleagues have said, you need to talk to your parents about that. We're not going to discuss details here. That's the responsibility of the educators online. And it's yet another reason why interactions between children online need to be really supervised at the
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah. Very true. I completely agree on this point that we need to supervise what the children are talking about, and especially on the online thing, and how much access they also have towards the internet, and how much access they have to screens, because it's flooded with information at the moment. But that said, and a little bit off topic is something that, as parents, we are regulating ourselves, but we're also, going through changes which we don't know how things will happen. And this was one question which came to me from my son itself, because one of his friends had decided to, with his entire family, leave. And then there, this process of loss and grief comes into picture, where he says that if he leaves, I'm going to lose this. Mama, if I'm going to leave, what if we are leaving and I have to leave my home, I have to leave my friends, my school. And then also comes the picture, being a child of determination, his entire system. And then it becomes a little bit of a difficult question for us to even answer it, because we have also not thought about it, like how we will go. So the best scene, what we do usually with him is to tell him that, what, we are safe and we are living, we are going day by day, one day at a time. And when the situation arises, we will have a discussion around it. But children, especially the young 6 years, 7, 6 to 10, 11 years of age, they understand loss and grief in terms of friends and family and spaces a lot. um, are there any practical tips or some kind of activities that we can do at home that they don't feel this loss, or they can absorb it or build some tolerance around it?
Right. Well, we don't want them to not feel it, although yes, I understand why you're saying that. Of course, none of us actually want them to feel it, but the feelings are there. If they're there, they're there. And so what we want them to be able to do is express in a healthy way, because what we know is feelings that are suppressed, or feelings that when they come out, they get a reaction that's negative, children begin to learn to suppress them, and that's not healthy for them. So I think first and foremost, we as parents need to get our heads around these emotions. In a typical parenting scenario, grief mightn't be the thing, it might be anger. And a lot of us are intensely uncomfortable with anger. A lot of us don't like jealousy and seeing that in our children either. And we try to kind of squash it or push it away. But what a window of tolerance is essentially, when we think about it from a nervous system point of view, you've got the ladder, where they're regulated, and then they feel this emotion, and then they're up at the top, and then they go back down the ladder and out the other side. We don't want them to jump over the ladder completely and push it all aside and convince them that they're not feeling this. We want them to go up that ladder. We don't want them to, but we want them to feel that discomfort, because it's building that muscle, it's building that capacity, nearly like an accordion. You know, it contracts and then comes back down again, and that strengthens it, and that's what builds resilience. So there's two ways to approach this. They're going to feel this, whether we like it or not. We've got two choices. We can censor it, push it to one side, say it's not happening, and that's going to have its own effect. Or we can embrace it a little bit. And this is the essence of co-regulation. This is, I'm going to hold space to you. I've anchored myself enough here to be fairly regulated in this situation. And I am your safe harbor now. You can let it all out. You can go through all the dastardly potential situations. And I'm going to gently echo that and say, you're really worried about that. With that. And also to validate that that makes perfect sense. I would be concerned about somebody who is not concerned about that. So just helping them to understand that their own inner feelings do make sense, but that feelings are safe, even the uncomfortable ones. They are survivable. Because at the moment, this grief and this uncertainty is very new for a lot of children, and it feels very big and very scary, to the point where they're not so much scared of the emotion, but the experience of having some huge overwhelming emotion. So we need to make space for it and just try to contain it a little bit. And that's going to look different. That's co-regulation, right? So that's going to look different for different children. And if they're very dysregulated in that moment, we want them to be talking more than we're talking. And we know that when a child is dysregulated, they don't see bigger picture thinking. They don't understand rationality in the same way that they might. So all focus back to ourselves. Oh my gosh, how am I doing right now? I was not prepared for this conversation. We don't have a plan. I mean, this is what came into my head the other night. I don't actually know if we will leave or we will what. I am taking it day by day, but leading into that and knowing, no, in this moment we are safe.
In the moment when we are safe, this is something which has stuck with me at the moment for a very long time. I also have a couple of parents who are friends and who have decided to stay back, and some friends who have decided to go back to their home country and come back when they feel it's safe enough. But I see some kind of, again, there are two kinds of groups at the moment. One who's trying to judge parents who are staying here, and the other group who's trying to judge parents who are leaving at the moment. So it's a kind of a battle between what you do best for your family, and there is no one solution that fits to every family. But what I strongly believe is that no parent or a family should be judged for taking a choice or making a choice that works best for them. So like for us also, we are in two states of mind whether we should stay, we should go, and if we stay, will be safe for our family, will be putting our family at stake, or and if we leave, will it be something that we're not loyal enough to our the place that we have been calling home for almost a decade now. So are there any ways that we can regulate ourselves and push ourselves out of this guilt understanding of entire families? Because from what I feel and I think is that every family should be given unjudgmental space to choose what works best for them.
Yes. I think I think this is a longer term goal generally as people and feeling judged. Um, One thing I know about guilt is present when you're doing something that's not aligned with your moral values.
Yeah.
And really, if you're trying to get out of a situation that feels unsafe for you, that's very valid. And what feels safe for one person does not feel safe for the next person. I think we need to remind ourselves that we have no idea what people are going through. And yes, we can have judgy, we all have had them, the judgy moments, jumping into our heads like, oh, come on, is it that bad? Or whatever it is. But then you see people in person and you realize, oh my gosh, you are really struggling with this. You don't know what's going on with anyone's mental health. You don't
Yeah.
know what's going on in anyone's, what else they are grappling with at the moment. So I think when it comes to other people, we need to keep that in mind. And for ourselves, the reason why I said I feel like it's a longer term goal, it's that many of us grew up with this toxic judgment presence,
Yeah.
whether it was from society, whether it was from wider family, whatever you grow up with, it's there. You might be a perfectionist. You might be being really hard on yourself and you're feeling judgment from other people, but actually maybe you're judging yourself here. I should be able to hold all this together. It's not that big of a deal. We should be able to stay. And now I can't believe I'm entertaining thoughts of going, or the flip side, the other way around. So I don't know. I think the mantra I always have in my head, and I try so hard to keep it there, is it's none of my business what other people think. None of my business. And I know we all know that phrase, but I
Yeah.
think you have to keep saying it to yourself. We've all seen the influencers online, and we've all seen all the criticism they're getting from the Western media. And you know what? I just think to myself, look, actually, in the moment, those people were terrified.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they had a camera in their hand and they just took a record of it. So
Yeah.
we just don't know. And I think we need to exercise so much compassion for ourselves
Yes.
in these moments. You don't need to do these perfectly, these decisions. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to have to pivot, but your responsiveness and your ability to react appropriately in the moment or change course, that is far more important.
Yeah, absolutely true. And that also said, when you talk about pivoting, is something that usually, the children have been in school doing a lot of physical activities and a lot of EAs they have, and now being in the digital learning mode. and similar something to COVID happened, and we don't know for how long this is going to work. How do you think that what little activities that we can possibly do so that the children don't feel left out of the EAs and the activities that they have been doing? Like I have been trying to ask my son to have a little bit more towards arts, something like drawing and coloring, and he loves Legos, so he likes to play a little bit more of it. So I give him more time to play with that. And with the when the kids are in school, so they have their own set way of doing it, have breaks and then back to the classrooms and everything. But set up here at home, when you're also working remotely yourself and you have got one child or two children who are going through the remote learning, how difficult it can be, or what practical help that we can possibly align ourselves with when we are taking care of these things, so that the children don't feel the burnt of not having the same kind of learning which they had in schools.
I think it's really important here to remember that this is not how education is supposed to work. And this is not suitable for learning generally. This is an emergency measure. And it's at the moment 2 weeks. Please let it not go on longer than 2 weeks. We'll deal with that when it comes. But when I said earlier about lowering your expectations, now is not the time to, for example, introduce fractions for the first time ever. Because I would assume in a good school, you would have concrete materials, you might have pneumicon tiles, you might have different things to help you to embed those skills. So I would say drop the standards, lower the expectations. Your child is not the only one who is not getting the usual level of education right now. Everyone is, it's quite a level playing field in that sense. The other thing is allow for their choice as much as you can. We know that play helps children to process what's going on. We know it's how they move through emotions in different scenarios, so we can be led by them. If there are 5 online Zoom classes and you're finding that by the third online Zoom class, your child is completely dysregulated and everything else for the rest of the day becomes an uphill battle where you're all tired and exhausted and fighting with each other, don't do them. Or
Yeah.
do them in your own pace, or take a break for a couple of hours and do them later. What I noticed in COVID and what I suspect is going to happen now, because of the demand and because of schools justifying their fees, which I completely understand, they're trying to provide this packed value, so I get it. But you have a timetable that is just as packed
Yeah.
as it is in school time, but it's not the same thing. So I think we need to give ourselves the freedom to step back from it and be flexible, check in for the attendance bits and as many lives as you can, but remove the pressure from it. Um, and then they need as much movement as possible. So if that means you're comfortable getting out to a ballet class or a karate class during the week, that's very important. If that's for you, then great. If your nervous system can cope with being in a park or a play area, do it because they really need to move. You're going to see such an uptick in the naughty
Yeah.
behavior if you don't. That to me right now is more important than the academic loss. And I know lots of people are worried about this loss, but we have to prioritize here. And we know that until children feel safe in their bodies and in their nervous systems, learning doesn't take place anyway. So they might be sitting there at a screen completely dysregulated, just about holding it together, and they're present for the class, but they're not taking any of it in.
Yeah.
They haven't managed to be in that nervous system state that allows them to engage that part of the brain that takes on new learning. So prioritize movement. Yes, do the arts. Yes, do the things that maybe you didn't normally make time for, but now you think, oh, might this be useful? Yes, it's extremely useful.
Yes, absolutely. That said, we have been talking about how we as parents can, help children regulate. But I also understand that, when COVID happened, a lot of the couples, that relationships strained a lot because there were so much of uncertainty. Everything was moving around, something which they didn't have any control of. And from what we have learned from COVID is to give ourselves a little bit more grace, give ourselves a little bit more compassion. But again, we are back to where we are in this uncertain times. COVID 2.0 is what I still call it. Are there any message that you want to give as parents, to parents, to how they can continue to have a relationship that works not only for the children but also for themselves, because testing times, and we have to not only keep our children regulated but ourselves, and as a couple and as a family, as parents as well, as a unit. So are there anything that you would like to, any message that you would like to, tell to the parents, that how they can regulate themselves as couples so that that positivity flows down the entire family unit?
I think let's acknowledge, first of all, that this is hard because the situation is hard,
Yeah.
not because you've done something wrong or you're failing at something or you're not up to the task. There are increased demands on everyone, and you're responding to something in real time. So imperfection is definitely expected. It feels harder than usual because it is harder than usual. That's the first thing, to keep that self-compassion for yourself, the recognition that you're juggling way more plates than usual. And when it comes to your spouse, to understand what your triggers are as well as what their triggers are, because you know, it's like the example I gave of the WhatsApp group
Yeah.
earlier. Some
Yeah.
people want to know as much information as possible, and for other people, that information really overwhelms them, and you end up dealing with two dysregulated people. We're not necessarily responsible for anyone else's emotions in a situation, but I would hope that as a married couple, you would be on a journey to, or beginning to, understand each other's attachment styles a little bit
Yeah.
and know what makes my husband anxious, what makes him really dysregulated, um, and begin to recognize that dance a little bit. I mean, that's a whole couples therapy thing, really. It's one of the reasons why parents need to really work on themselves and then work on themselves as a couple. But to try and keep that connection there, and remember, your spouse is doing their best as well. It might not look the same as how your best looks, but we're
Yeah.
different people. And to keep remembering that you're a unit together in this, supporting each other. And it is not going to be perfect, but it can be done.
Thank you so much, Louise. That's an amazing message that you want to give. But before we come to a close for this session, um, any advice to the entire parenting right now, parenting groups, parents around here in UAE and the extended GCC, to just hang in there, uncertain times and everything, because I remember having communities during COVID, like online communities. It was a big thing where we could just pass on our, emotions and feelings and talk. But this situation is a little bit tricky because it's not only something which is, you know, uncertain also, but also sometimes what we didn't have in COVID, we have today to protect and to keep it safe. Do you have any message for the entire parenting and the families out there who have decided to stay here in UAE, calling it their home?
I think I'd like to say be really um, intentional with your boundaries in terms of social media. You've made the choice, you made it for your own good reasons. And if that's where you are, protect that choice a little bit. And when you see spiraling happen on the WhatsApp groups, feel free to mute, protect your own energy. And I know we all say, if this is 2026, I'd like a refund, please. Acknowledge that, yes, it's absolutely crazy what's going on. But that there will come a point where you will look back on this and you will think, wow, we got through that. Just like we do with COVID. We
Yeah.
look at it and we think that was absolutely harrowing, but I had strength I didn't even know I possessed. This is where your grit and your resilience is coming to the fore. Don't doubt yourself. You can do it. And you don't have to do it by never shedding a tear and being, rock hard and super strong, it's very healing to be vulnerable as well.
Yeah.
So, all feelings are valid. It's all welcome. They're all welcome. They're all valid, and we have to go through them. Don't try and push them away.
Thank you so much, Louise, for your amazing time today, some really great insights, and for this lovely conversation. I think what you have shared today is not just insightful, but deeply reassuring for so many of us as parents who are navigating these uncertain times again. It's a powerful reminder that even when external routines and systems feel disrupted, as parents, we still have the ability to create safety, connection, and regulation for our children at home. And sometimes just understanding what our children are going through and knowing how to respond with calm and empathy can make the entire difference. Thank you for bringing both your expertise and your heart into this conversation. And to everyone who is listening to us, we hope this gave you a little more clarity, confidence, and calm in navigating these moments with your children. From all of us here at Thrive HQ and at Diyaa, we are here to continue building conversations and resources that support family like ours to yours. Thank you for being with us, and we'll see you in the next conversation.